Hey everyone. My name is Candace.
And I'm Katie.
And welcome to Dead in the Heart of Texas, a true crime and paranormal podcast. A Texan true crime and paranormal podcast, where we just tell you some spoopy stuff from the state of Texas, because Lord knows there's plenty of it. How are you doing today, Katie?
Well, everybody, I currently am suffering from a canker sore.
Oh no, those are literally the worst. I am so sorry.
I was thinking, I told Candace this earlier, maybe it's because of the black-eyed children.
It's the black-eyed kids.
Yeah, Motrin. Motrin is my friend.
Yeah, I bet.
How are you, Candace?
I'm doing good. I actually, do you want to take your mind off of this and tell us... Oh!
Let's talk about some
real
happy
quick,
stuff.
before we get started. Dead in the Heart of Texas just celebrated its 1-year anniversary on May 3rd. Yay! Even though, I don't know if we could call it a 1-year anniversary because we took a huge hiatus.
Mostly because of my fault, so that's why people should join and follow us for Candace, because I kind of suck.
No, it was my fault too. I mean, I didn't have good access to internet, and it's not like we didn't try during that hiatus to record. It was just...
Hey, we recorded one episode 4 different times.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's the lost episode. I think that's what it was. Or was it the Minger and Selena? Or was it both?
Minger and Selena. I remember hearing the Minger Hotel story many times.
Yeah, you know all about Theodore Roosevelt's ghost at the bar.
That's all I think about now. Actually, I think I had a dream about that.
Did you really? Were you at the bar and
it was a weird dream. You and I were hanging out, and then all of a sudden, some guy's yo, he didn't say yo, but we could use strong men like you. And in the dream, I was excuse me, sir, I don't think you're... Yeah, you, young boy. And that was the dream. It was weird.
Okay, first of all, I love that.
I have great dreams.
But yeah, that is pretty great. But yeah, so we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, so we're gonna have a belated special episode coming out here probably next week, and it's going to be a bit different because we're gonna cover stories outside of Texas. So we're both looking forward to that. We also picked each other's stories. So I picked Katie's and Katie picked mine. And yeah, really, really excited. Katie's taking a sip of her coffee from her cat's mug.
Yeah, and regretting it.
All right, Katie, do you want to go ahead and tell us your story?
All right, everybody. So, time for a very nice bedtime story. Okay.
All right. I'm
so,
for it.
Today, I will be covering the legend of La Llorona, also known as
spooky.
the Weeping Woman. I almost said Weeping Willow. That is not it. Not right. Okay, so some background. La Llorona is most commonly known in the South Texas area, and also Mexico, which is actually where the story was said to have originated. And just so you guys know, there are several versions of the story, depending on the area in which you hear it. And I am going to try my best to cover a couple of different variations. Talking is hard. Okay. So first, to start with a warning sign, I'm going to tell you what she looks like so you can be on the lookout, Candace.
Okay, great. I'm also recording in front of a giant mirror, so nothing creepy about that.
Good luck.
I'm going to be looking in the background now for her. Sorry, continue.
Let's see. So, I'm just going to read some of these. She is tall, thin, and typically wears a long white dress. She has hair as dark as night, and sometimes she's been described as a willowy white figure who appears near the water wailing for her children. And, okay, this part scares me. Her face has features until the screaming starts, and when that happens, you can tell she's not human, and sometimes she doesn't have facial features once she starts screaming. Yep.
Ew.
Pleasant, huh? Yeah.
I don't like that. I didn't know that part. I've also heard stories of her
I looked up like 20 different sites.
Okay. I've also heard stories of her having a horse head. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to steal your thunder. Please.
I have. I was trying not to make... Oh, you good. You good. Yeah, but the thing with no facial features kind of beat the horse one.
That it did, yeah.
Oof. Okay, so first I will start with the most common story, I guess you could say. So basically, once upon a time, there was a beautiful peasant woman named, ordinarily like Maria, but in some iterations she's named Louisa. And this one...
Okay, I'm sorry. I hear something in the background, and it legit sounds like La Llorona.
Oh, that's my sister-in-law practicing opera. Yeah, just disclaimer, guys. I am currently living in a house with like three other musicians, and she's an opera singer, and she sings beautifully and really high, and I think she's scaring Candace.
I'm sorry. The first time I heard it, I thought a truck was driving by or something, and then it just like continued, and I was like, I have to ask.
No, it should.
Okay.
She should be done in like a minute because she and my husband are gonna play video games at 6 my time. So
Okay.
you're good.
No, you're fine. I'm sorry. Continue.
What if I'd said like, wait, I don't hear anything. What are you talking about?
You're like, yeah, you should have. You should have played along, and I probably would have freaked out.
Well, I don't need to give you a heart attack. And karma's... Oh, that is kind of creepy sounding. Okay.
I hope we keep that. I hope they can pick it up and hear it on the podcast, because that just adds a little extra oomph to it. Like,
hey, it's perfect. That means I was meant to tell the story now. So we'll start back at the wonderful beginning of this tale. So once upon a time... Into the Woods reference, sorry. Okay. So basically we have a peasant woman who's beautiful, and for the sake of these purposes, I'll just call her Maria. That's what she was named in most of the stories I read. So basically, she was married to her husband, who came from the wealthy class, and she at first was like a peasant. So just take note of that they were from different classes. So the couple lived happily and had 2 children. Now, in some stories, it was said that they had 3 children together, and to be honest, the genders kept changing for the kids. So just know that they had children together. So they were happy for a couple of years, but then the husband lost interest. One day, Maria and her children were walking along the river and saw her husband riding in a carriage with a beautiful woman in his company. So the carriage stopped, and he spoke to his kids, but ignored Maria.
that bastard.
Maria was very angry, and in an act of revenge, she threw her children into the river. So basically, she was like, you did this to me, I'm gonna do this. And by the time she realized what she'd done, she was basically like, what did I do? Oh my gosh. She drowned herself. Thus, she then was fated to walk the earth for eternity, crying for what she'd done. So that's like the most famous one. So in some other versions of the story, Maria doesn't kill herself, but spends the remainder of her days by the river, alive, but crying for her children. Now this is where I didn't actually know. There are actually some iterations where they depict Maria as a very vain woman. So she was known to spend her nights partying and drinking. And after getting drunk one night, she came home to find that her children had already been drowned. And she was cursed for her neglectfulness and was doomed to walk the earth and search for them in her afterlife. So that's an alternative story that it's told.
All right, I don't think I've ever heard that version.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Depends on the culture and why they're sharing the story.
But I was just gonna say that's one thing I love about folklore and fairy tales is that sometimes, depending on the culture and the region, the story changes a bit to fit their values.
Yeah, and I have 4 more to tell you, so this will be fun.
Okay.
One of the most famous inspirations for the story, or origins, is La Malinche. La Malinche was born in the 16th century. This myth started in the 16th century with the arrival of the Spanish in America, and you might have heard someone named Cortez. And so basically, La Malinche was a native woman of the area that Hernando Cortez was trying to take over, essentially. And she, along with 19 other women, became one of his slaves as a gift to him. And She alone served as his mistress, interpreter, and guide during his conquest of Mexico. And it's actually believed that she was one of the main reasons he was able to conquer Mexico, and she was thought as a traitor of her people for helping him. But she was a slave, so I don't know how much choice she had. But anyway, so they never married. She was his mistress. But later, Cortez left her after she gave birth to his children, and he married a Spanish woman. And it is said that La Malinche murdered his spawn in revenge. Now, just so you know, there's no actual evidence that La Malinche killed her children or was shunned by her people. Historically, there is evidence that she did exist, and so I wanted to share that, so it's just not a tale of a terrible woman. So the real Malinche, her actual name was, pardon my pronunciation, Malinali, and she was also known...
Melania? I'm just kidding.
I was actually looking no, okay. And she's also been known as Marina Malintzin Malinche, Doña Marina, and the one that I can't pronounce, so I'm not going to do it again. And she was born in 1500 in Bainala in present-day Mexico. She died in what they believe is 1550 in Spain. And so this part is actually why they believe the myth was made up later and she didn't actually kill her children, because she married a man named Juan de Armalillo, and they had 2 children together. So that's just something that I thought was interesting. So this might have actually just been made up later in the culture. Let's go on to the next iteration of the La Llorona, and that is something that Candace hopefully hasn't encountered yet, but known as the Woman of Hollering Creek, which originated right outside San Antonio, Texas.
AKA our hometown.
And so this story is very sad. So basically, the tale goes that there was once a pioneer family living near the banks of San Antonio and was attacked by Native Americans. The original article I found said Indians, and I changed it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for changing it.
So basically, the Native Americans, this group, killed her husband, and after she saw that, the mother of the group, or the wife, she drowned her own children because she didn't want them to live a worse fate by being imprisoned and tortured by the Native Americans. And by the time they got to her, she was the only one left, and she basically scared them away because of her wailing and screaming because of what happened. They say that her spirit has been known to wander the creek banks, sobbing and crying for her children. Her spirit still returns to this day, searching for them.
Fun fact, even as a child, I was into all the spooky stuff, and we would always pass it on our way to San Antonio, and I would beg my grandparents to stop and let me go there, or to take me one night to Woman Hollering Creek.
Did you want to die, Candace?
Apparently I had a death wish. I was probably like that lady from, As Above, So Below.
Oof.
I just watched that movie last night. It was, it wasn't awful, but Scarlet.
If you guys ever want to see an infuriating protagonist, just watch As Above, So Below.
Agreed. I'm pretty sure Woman Hollering Creek is now dried up completely.
Don't want to know what they found in it.
I don't think she'll be dragging anyone into the water anytime soon.
Alrighty. So, there are some other myths, La Llorona, and some of them consist of Medea of Greek mythology, which is cool. And so basically Medea, if that's how you pronounce it, she killed her sons after being betrayed by her husband, Jason. So it's kind of a common theme going along here, guys. And then there's Jenny Greenteeth, who I believe is of an Irish folklore. And she also drags children to drown to keep adventurous children away from, the water where they might accidentally stumble into an accident. Oh, wait, she wasn't Irish. I'm stupid. The next one, where you probably heard of it, was Irish Banshees.
Oh, yes.
Which is not my sister-in-law, because she sounds beautiful. Maybe just scary from the Skyping perspective.
Just a little ambience noise for you.
Banshees, which do come up in pop culture today, like TV shows, as we've all seen probably, but they are basically...
like Teen Wolf?
Yep. Ghostly wails of a woman warning of impending death. So, the question, where might you stumble upon La Llorona, guys? So, the first obvious one is bodies of water, rivers, canals, lakes, etc. Just follow a little kid Candace looking for her.
Yes. I will lead you to her, no worries.
Oh, but recently, probably like past few decades, she has been known to start arriving in more urban spaces, like highways and railroads.
Nope.
So the best one, guys, she's been known to appear in the back of your car if you do not give her a ride.
No!
So this goes back to the description of her. Just remember that she's tall, usually pale skinned, with dark hair. She typically wears long white dresses. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but sometimes she'll like have something like a dress or her hair covering her face, so you can't tell immediately that it's not a ghost. So if you ever see someone wandering along the highway, railroad, canal, and they ask for a ride and seem a little bit off, just don't invite them in. Actually, just keep driving and don't talk to them at all.
Yeah, never stop for hitchhikers. I'm sorry. Just don't. If you're worried about them, call the police. Let them take care of it.
Yeah. So, this brings me to some interpretations / why the people think that the legend, or lessons that you can learn from this legend. And so the first one is that La Llorona was created as a warning to women that we should choose our lovers cautiously. Next, the difficulty of single motherhood, which I think relates to the first one. So they also say that it could be a criticism of female sexuality, which I can definitely see, especially in the iteration where she literally will just go out and have fun. You know what I mean? And then an interesting one, which I say for everyone. They say that it could be a metaphor for the grief over indigenous Mexicans killed during the Spanish conquest. So that goes back to La Malinche. They say that La Llorona is vengeful. So this is more warnings. So she's vengeful and will drown other children and try to use them as like sacrifices to go in the place of her own that she lost. Okay, and then there's Candace running to Hollering Creek to be like, I want to meet her.
begging my grandparents to take me to my doom. They were like, what is wrong with this child?
Okay, so the last two are kind of creepy, Candace. I want you to not look in the mirror, okay? So,
oh no.
In some cultures, they use the tale of La Llorona as a way to discipline their kids. And so basically they say that she'll appear when kids misbehave and are disobedient to their parents. And the last one, so basically everybody, if you see her, it usually means that either you or someone close to you is going to die soon.
Ah, lovely. There goes the banshee part.
Yeah. Good luck, guys. And then basically, I try to look up some sightings of people who have seen her, but most of them followed along the same lines, that they're driving somewhere or on a vacation near like bodies of water, and sometimes a lady, matching the description, will be on the property all of a sudden, and then she'll walk away and disappear really fast, and then reappear way faster than humanly possible. And some report that when they see her, she doesn't have a face. Others report that she'll look at them, stare at them, and then disappear and start crying. More often than not, she's walking toward the river, and that's when they hear the screaming. So, that is my lovely fairy tale for all of you people. Sleep well. And there was a movie that was made recently, and I haven't seen it, but now I kind of want to. Now I kind of don't.
Yeah, I think the guy who made the Conjuring films made it. Don't quote me on that. But I do love the Conjuring movies, or at least the first one.
But how do you feel, Candace? How do you feel?
Terrified, honestly. I get to drive home. After this, I get to pass a bridge over a big body of water. Thankfully, I don't have to pass Woman Hollering Creek. But it just reminds me, I'm pretty sure the very first episode of Supernatural was about La Llorona.
Yes! That's what I was thinking, because that's the first time I'd seen her.
Yeah. And it's like, basically in the first episode, she's like on a bridge, and like people, usually men, pull over to pick her up, and then she attacks them and stuff like that. So,
yeah, or like she seduces them somehow into letting them in the... I remember in Supernatural, she kept going, will you take me home? Or do you want to come home with me? So, guys, just don't.
Take me home tonight. Okay, anyways. Yeah, my motto is like, never pull over to help anyone on the side of the road. If you're afraid for their safety, just call the cops.
Yeah, it's just too risky.
Yeah, people, I don't trust people.
Yeah, same. It's like you don't really know if they're actually needing help, and if they do, then just call the police and tell them where, because, yeah.
Yeah, the first time I got pulled over, it was like kind of in a dark country road. And like this cop had been tailing me for a while, and I couldn't tell he was a cop right away. But thankfully he waited till we got into sort of the small town that didn't have a lot going on, and then that's when he pulled me over because my headlight was out.
Oh, you must have been scared.
I was like terrified. I was like, oh god, this is it. I'm gonna die.
No.
But no, he was very nice. He was very nice.
The last thing I want to do is share a story about you on this podcast, so don't.
Yeah, I hope I never make it on one of these podcasts as a victim of something. But speaking of victims, should we talk about my story?
Is it a happy one like La Llorona? Okay, I'm ready for this. Let's do it. Okay.
All right. So we're gonna back up a little bit. Or actually, no, wait. Katie, how much do you know about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Well, my first gut reaction is, ah! And I think that's all I know. That I shouldn't be excited. That I shouldn't think it's a happy event. Didn't they make a movie about it? Or am I thinking of something else?
Yes. So there is a movie called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's basically about a group of friends who are attacked by a family of cannibals. And one of the said cannibals is named Leatherface, has a chainsaw, and he would wear a mask made of human skin. So this film was marketed as a true story. Allegedly in Port, Texas, there was a chainsaw-wielding man who lived with his equally deranged family and was attacking people. And he went on a killing spree on August of 1973. However, this rumor allegedly happened 4 days after filming for the movie wrapped
Wait, what?
up.
Just repeat that again.
So, yeah. So the story about a man in Port, Texas who went on a killing rampage, not true. This rumor was created 4 days after filming for the movie had wrapped up.
Oh.
So it's just a made-up story. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not based on an actual event, or at least not a chainsaw-wielding crazy man.
So, did you... I don't know if you saw the season of... Wait, you probably did. American Horror Story, season 2, I believe, was, Bloody Face, probably based off of Leatherface.
Yeah, and,
Ew.
I'm gonna get to that in a second. So this whole story, it's kind of a loophole, I guess you could say, in that for our idea for the podcast. So when Katie and I were coming up with an idea for the podcast, we knew we wanted to do a true crime paranormal podcast, but we felt like we needed a niche.
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 Niche. Tell us how to pronounce it.
I don't know. I'm only an English major. What do you want from me, people?
Well, then you look worse than me, because I play a wooden block for a living, so shame on you.
It's all
so
my
nice.
fault. But anyway, so we've talked about this on the podcast before, but Katie is currently living in Wisconsin, and I'm currently living in Texas, so we thought about maybe doing, stories from Wisconsin and Texas. And then Katie said, no, I don't want to do that because there's nothing good no good serial killers from Wisconsin.
Oh, here we go.
Katie. Some of the best are from Wisconsin. I don't know what's going on in that state. Jeffrey Dahmer's from Wisconsin.
No!
And so is the guy we're going to be talking about today, who is the inspiration for Leatherface. His name is Ed Gein.
Oh.
He was a murderer and gravedigger from Wisconsin. However, he had no chainsaw.
Well,
He did though have...
Oh, Wisconsin, help. Okay, well, I'm leaving.
Yeah, Wisconsin also has a goat man, apparently, but we'll maybe talk about that later. He was not known as the Texas Chainsaw Killer or Leatherface, but he did have a kind of a fun name. He was called the Plainfield Ghoul. So Edward Theodore Gein was born July 27th, 1906 in La Crosse County, Wisconsin, to parents George...
No!
What?
That's close-ish to where I've been.
Eek. Okay, yeah, so he was born to George and Augusta Gein, both who had their own problems. His father, George, was an alcoholic. He couldn't hold down a job to save his life. However, he was described as like a shy and passive person. However, his wife kind of made up for him in that area. She was fanatically religious and verbally abused her husband and children. She couldn't stand her husband, but due to her religious beliefs, she didn't want to get a divorce. When Gein was young, Augusta had owned a small grocery store, and she had saved up enough money to purchase a home on the outskirts of Plainsfield so that her children wouldn't be influenced by, quote, outsiders.
Because that's always the start of a happy story.
Yes. Depriving your children of much needed social interaction.
Oh my gosh, just a scary little thing that from my life. Someone I met, basically we were like talking. I wasn't even getting into politics or our opinions, but literally she said, "Oh, I don't really know anything about politics because my mom didn't explain it to me ever." So literally this girl is like 26, 27 and doesn't know how to think for herself. Doesn't even know what party she follows because her mom didn't tell her what to think. So that's my story.
And so she's just like, I'm gonna form my own opinions.
No, she's fine. She doesn't care. She's like, my mom didn't tell me. So I feel like mom could be like, just vote for the Cabbage Patch Kids for president.
Just vote for Joe Exotic. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's a little modern day scary tale.
What a privileged life she must leave, and I will leave it at that.
Yep.
Anyways, alright, let me see, where was I?
Lacrosse, and the mom doesn't want them infiltrated by outsiders.
And yes, so on this farm is where she raised her children. So there's Ed and his older brother Henry. His mother was a Lutheran, but my dad's side of the family are Lutheran, and they are not this batshit crazy. So in my opinion, her teachings seemed to be a bit more on the Puritan side, in that she preached heavily from the Old Testament. She instilled a fear of God, sexuality, and women in Ed, and I guess his brother too. But it mainly affected him more. Claimed all women except for herself were prostitutes and instruments of the devil. Yeah, so they lived very secluded lives on this farm. They would only leave the farm to go to school, and they weren't allowed to have friends come over, and they were even punished for making friends at school.
That's great. No friends. You can't have contact with other humans because they're all prostitutes.
Yeah. So classmates remembered Ed as being kind of strange. He would randomly laugh in class as if he had heard something hilarious. Although he was a socially awkward child, he did pretty well at school and he excelled in reading. However, this did make him a target for bullies. So he didn't have a very happy life at school or at home, because right after school he would go home and the afternoons were reserved for Bible study. The boys were constantly abused by Augusta because she feared they would end up like their father. Despite all of this, he was a huge mama's boy. He loved her and he tried everything in her power to make her happy. So Ed's father, George, he passed away April 1st, 1940 from heart failure. And at this time, Ed was 23 years old and still living at home. After their father passed away, Did
the mom poison him?
No, as far as we know, she did not. I think the coroner ruled it as heart failure. Probably from his excessive amount of drinking.
I'll do it.
Yeah. So in order to support themselves and their mother, Ed and Henry would do odds and ends jobs around town. Ed's favorite job was to babysit because he related more to kids than adults. Which, can we just stop and imagine for a moment that your babysitter was the guy who inspired Leatherface? You're like, alright kids, made you SpaghettiOs for dinner, and it just hands them a bowl made of a human skull. So he's in his 30s now, and he begins dating a divorced and single mother of 2, and he had made plans to move in with her, so things were going pretty good with him. However, his brother Henry didn't think it was a good idea. He often commented on Ed and their mother's odd relationship, and he frequently said bad things about her in front of Ed just to incite him. And of course, Ed didn't like that.
Oh, gosh.
On May 19th, 1944, they were burning brush on the property when the fire went out of control. Interesting. Firefighters came and they extinguished the flames, and they noticed Henry was mysteriously nowhere to be seen. They searched the field for him and eventually found him, face down, and he was unburnt. And they thought that he might have had, died from, the heat. Bruises were discovered on his head, and the police just kind of brushed it off, and eventually his death was ruled as asphyxiation. I'm sorry, but being smothered in smoke or by smoke, will not cause you to bruise your head.
Yeah, I'm just sorry, law enforcement from back then, but is there, not common sense, asphyxiation? Yeah, that'll cause bruises on your head from physical contact.
It's let's see, there was a fire, he was unburnt, he must have just smothered. Nothing else could have happened. This left Ed alone with his mother, and without his father or brother, his mother focused all of her attention on him until she passed away on December 29th, 1945. Ed was absolutely devastated. He boarded up her room so it would remain the same as if it was the day she died. And around this time is when he became fixated on novels that included Nazi atrocities and cannibalism. Just normal stuff. As one does to cope when their mother. Everyone has different coping mechanisms. I get it.
I guess
not really.
I guess I'm wrong to. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say. I guess I'm weird to resort to rom-coms and stuff like that.
Yeah, just a little. So in 1957, he attracted police attention as being the last person to have seen missing hardware store owner Bernice Worden. And so he was acting pretty suspicious, and they eventually got a search warrant to go search his property. And they found her body in the shed. She had been fatally shot and decapitated. And you think, oh my, that's pretty bad. But wait, it gets worse. Not only did they find the decapitated head, not only did they find Bernice Worden's body, but they also found the decapitated head of missing tavern owner Mary Hogan. And they also found the body of many other dead women on his property. Apparently, Ed Gein's favorite hobby, aside from reading novels about Nazi atrocities and cannibalism, but he also liked to grave rob. He was very resourceful, though, with these bodies that he would steal. Don't worry about it. He liked to reuse their body parts for souvenirs, home decor, and he liked to make clothing out of their skin, including masks, which is where the Leatherface thing comes in. So some of the things that they found in his home, there was a wastebasket made out of human bones. There was chair seats made out of human skin. There were skulls on his bedposts. They found a corset made from female torso, leggings made from human skin.
Ew.
9 vulvas in a box. He had a nipple belt, which was a belt made out of nipples.
As one imagines. Ew.
And there were a pair of lips on a window shade drawstring.
Well, I'm not gonna eat food for a couple of decades.
His interior design, if you will, probably inspired the scene from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where one of Leatherface's victims finds a room full of furniture made from human bodies. Not only did he inspire Leatherface, but he also inspired Norman Bates from Psycho in the Bates Motel. I had mentioned earlier that his mother's room was kept in impeccable condition. However, I did not mention that he just let the rest of the house rot. There was trash everywhere. There was a bed frame with a box spring and a clump of blankets, but no mattress. So he was just truly living in squalor. But he made sure to keep his mother's room in pristine condition. So eventually Gein was found guilty of murdering Bernice Worden, the hardware store owner. He was declared insane and institutionalized. When police raided Gein's, they found a cauldron, which his family would use for rendering hog fat because they lived on a hog farm. When police found it, It was crusted in dry blood and it contained human intestines, so it was quite possibly believed that he was probably eating the meat
Ew.
of the bodies.
Okay, maybe we should be vegetarians.
Right. So they basically, like, sold all of his things that weren't made out of humans to, like, in a yard sale or an estate sale. And someone bought the cauldron in, like, March of 1958. And it was bought by a woman who thought it would make a lovely planter. Apparently she did not know. But yeah, so this guy was truly, truly messed up. But honestly, I feel like that probably would have been me, like that old lady who found a cauldron and was like, oh, I could put some succulents in that.
Just don't, and I'll send you cauldron from Amazon, brand new, unused, for, I don't know, $10.
I'm so guilty of it. I'm like, anytime I go to like an estate sale or an antique store, I'm like, I could put a succulent in that. So honestly, that probably would have been me.
Oh, Candace.
Boo, 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 boo. So actually, I don't think this cauldron was sold at the same yard sale where they were selling all of Gein's stuff, because like this lady had no idea who it belonged to. So one day, a friend of the family was over, who had been Gein's neighbor, and he saw the cauldron, and this was like years later at her house, and he was horrified because he had been part of the cleanup at Gein's house, and that's where he had seen it. Yeah, so fun fact, like, when they were cleaning up his house, it was such a mess that, like, they just invited the whole city to help out. And just be like, hey, Bob, you want to come over for dinner tomorrow? Ah, I can't. I gotta go clean out Ed Gein's shed. I volunteered.
Ugh. It's like when you don't clean your room, and so eventually, like, eventually it's like the whole town has to help out.
Yeah. So anyways, so Dan McIntyre eventually bought the cauldron and he put it up for auction, but there are allegedly some spooky things that happen around this cauldron. For example, a mysterious illness, like people who are around it, they just become sick all of a sudden. Nearby electronics will start to, or they'll stop working properly. And just like a lot of other weird phenomena sort of happens when the cauldron was mentioned. The woman who originally bought it from the yard sale, she had just basically kept it in her garage and never made it into a planter, and she apparently wonders if she should have kept it instead of sending out the evil into the world. People claim to feel dizzy, uneasy, and anxious around it, and I've actually seen his cauldron. Like, the actual...
okay?
I was fine. For it now resides at Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum. And fun fact, so the room that it's held in, it's like a recreation of his barn that it used to be in. So it's like you walk into this room and it looks like you are in a barn. The cauldron is right in the middle, and then on the wall, like right above it, is the actual shovel he would use to grave dig. I didn't experience anything around it. However, so I could have sworn that I heard something about this, but I couldn't find anything online. The people who originally moved it out of the barn, I could have sworn I heard that they all died like shortly after they moved it out of the barn, and people thought it was cursed. And like these weren't like just kind of like old men who were sick or had like underlying health conditions. They were like strong, young, healthy men, and just like one by one they started dying.
So don't volunteer to clean up a psychopath's house. Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, they found some truly awful things in that house. I think I would not have been able to clean it up. So like I mentioned, Ed Gein's inspired a couple other famous villains from horror movies, but he also inspired famous murderer from Houston named Elmer Wayne Henley, who would recruit young male victims, and would molest them. Yep. So anyways, he just inspired like a mix of creepy men. So fans of the movie can visit the actual house. In the movie, it's now called Grand Central Cafe, and it serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that's in Kingsland, Texas. You can also eat and stay at the gas station from the movie as well, and that's in Bastrop, Texas. It's just called the gas station. They have 4 mini cabins.
Wait, what's the restaurant called again?
Grand Central Cafe. What's that face?
Because I've been to Kingsland before, and it's pretty small. I'm curious now.
Have you eaten there?
Grand Central
Cafe?
I'm just gonna look it up. I like your little loophole,
My
to Texas
loophole, yes.
land.
I've got a couple of loopholes planned, actually.
Well, now that I know we can do loopholes.
Yeah, if it's like anything related to Texas, like, well, this guy spent a month in Texas and he may have killed someone here, you can totally cover it. There are no rules.
Well, now I know
some relation to Texas.
that there were also many serial killers from Wisconsin, which is so comforting.
Yeah.
I know how to pick them, don't I? Wow. And then if I ever disclose my next location, the first thing I'm gonna do, just kidding, I will not research it because that's too freaky.
Serialkillersnearme.com.
It's like, oh, there's one 2 blocks who grew up 2 blocks away. Honey, we're gonna move, okay?
There's one that lived in this apartment. How about that?
See, I think this is why I want to, like, take a self-defense class and carry pepper spray.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. Like, everyone should, for sure.
Oh, maybe that's something we can do in quarantine. Look up, like, self-defense videos.
Yeah, my brother has, like, a punching bag dummy right behind me that's really creeping me out.
Okay, so I've been staring at this, like, across the street from me, someone's backyard. I can't tell what it is, but I think I, like, freaked myself out because, like, it looks like it could theoretically be, like, a silhouette of something. And then I was thinking, it looks like the Grim Reaper. But then it looks like it's more like a pile of, like, lumber or something. But no, or it looks like a statue, and it looks like it just moved, so I'm just not gonna look at it.
Is it Llorona? Or
Well,
Black-Eyed Kid?
it
I
looks
heard
like
you talking about him.
Yeah, it looks like a black statue, though. And I'm just like...
Oh, I don't...
So it looks more like the Grim Reaper. But I don't think someone would have a
Gotcha.
statue of the Grim Reaper in their backyard, right?
It's a banshee.
Yeah. I hope I don't see that, because that means me or someone close to me is gonna die soon.
Hopefully not. I was wondering why you were looking out the window. I was like, oh, my story's boring her.
And I look scared, I'm like...
Just like, oh,
What am I looking
it's fine.
It's all
There's
fine.
just a demon outside my window. It's okay. It's all good.
Don't move. Okay.
All right. Well, I don't think...
Do we have any announcements for our other creative endeavors, Candace?
Oh, yeah. So... A Few Good Albums is coming to A Few Good Albums will hopefully be live in the next couple of weeks, and as well as my YouTube channel, so I'll tell you more about that later. What about you, Katie?
I just posted my second video yesterday for my YouTube channel, Freckled to a T, T-E-A, and it's like a little day in my life vlog, but like the violin side, so you can kind of see what I do.
Oh, all right. I've already watched
Candace
it.
has watched it, so she can tell you if it's any good.
It's great, and she talks about some good stretches you can do that I definitely was following along with, because I have some problems in my wrists, and so yeah, it was a good video.
Yeah, and I might actually try to post one this Saturday again, so tomorrow, because I'm trying to do one a week, even if it's shorter, because apparently that's how you build a fan base. Or viewers, so you just keep posting consistently. So I will be doing that for my channel and for our podcast.
Yay! Yeah. Speaking of which, you can tweet at us at DITHOT Podcast. That's DITOT Podcast. And if you want to send us an email about your encounter with La Llorona, or hopefully not your encounter with Ed Gein,
Yeah, I hope not.
you can email us. Or if you just want to talk, tell us any kind of scary story, we're here for it. Eventually, I think we would like to do listener episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so tell us and we'll mention it on the podcast. You can email us at deadintheheartoftexas@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Candace.
I'm Katie.
And don't let black-eyed kids drag you into the river or make a chair out of you.
But yeah, we'll catch you guys next time for our anniversary video. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. All right. Bye, y'all.
Goodbye.